Hello, my name is Frances Fox. I'm a trained remote viewer. I have specialized in interspecies communication, which includes communication with aliens and with dolphins and with a rock. Everything has consciousness. This is a chat which I'm giving 4 or 5 times a week, which is later turned into a podcast on Spotify and Apple, called Francis Fox News from Other Dimensions, because what I bring to the table here is information from the other dimensions, because that is what my skills bring to me. You already have a lot of information on the physical dimension, but having that extra information can make for much better decisions. It's very much preventive, not just in medical care, but in politics, in your children's lives. So the subject we're going to discuss today, I was laughing a lot about it yesterday. Today I'm not laughing because I'm very tired. I think when you have a high, like we've all had after the Trump win, then there comes a low. That's why moderation is so important, because you go up and then you have the corresponding low. And I'm in one of those lows today. But today we're going to be talking about sex again. And it's interesting. I have been living very synchronistically the last several years. Not really sure of where I was going, but allowing myself to, for my instincts to tell me where to go next. Many, many years ago, when I was married, my husband used to say he didn't know anything about whether I was a psychic or not. Remember that my family and my husband did not find out about my history until the 90s. They did not know that I had a secret life and I was attached to this program, that I had been a psychic spy and whatever. But he used to say he didn't know anything about me being a psychic or not. He did notice that I could see things coming down the pike before they were coming down the pike, which is basically what being a psychic is. Um, so I started 10 years ago working on what I called in Spanish el gran apagón, the great turnoff, which had to do with sex. And I was getting concerned. It felt to me like there was an emergency going on the planet, that people were no longer interested in sex. I'm a psychic. All psychics, all card readers, all the thing that we were up to here with was females asking about their guy. Is he going to come be with me? Does he love me? Is he going to leave his wife? Till when do I have to wait? Sickening. I mean, boring. And I finally reached the point where I said, I can't read any of that, because you really shouldn't have a psychic read anything where she has not been personally successful. And I was divorced. Plus, I had the sexual abuse issues. That means I'm not successful in relationships with the opposite sex or with the same sex, if that was my inclination, which it isn't. So I wouldn't take care of that, but still the questions never ended. And then I noticed that all of a sudden, that's it, it dropped off. Nobody asks the questions that used to drive us all nuts. Nobody. They do not ask because they're not interested in sex. Well, I instinctively I went, I think this is not a good thing. I think that this is like, there's something going on here and we need to take care of it. So I did a lot of research into the Gran Apagón, the big turnoff. And nobody would cover it. When I told media about it, nobody was interested. So eventually I dropped it. I did get a book out called Sex, the Path to God, together with two other females, Veronica del Castillo, whose sister is Kate del Castillo, from Mexican actress who works in American movies, whatever, and Cecile Cachedorian. And the book was my title, Sex, the Path to God. And Veronica, her part of it was her battle with men in the workplace, etc. She was an anchor. And Cecile's was about embrace, hugging, and how important it is and how it can change you. But the only part of the book that was about sex was mine. And I never talk about the sex act, other than to tell you that Sex comes from the earth. So if you have enough of the earth element, you're going to be more sexual. And sex has a lot to do with water because that's the element of the sexual chakra. So when you go to the beach, you can have more sex. Other than that, and if you have sex with your 2 feet on the ground and you figure that out, don't ask me, you're going to have much more successful sex. Other than that, I don't talk about the acts of sex. Like I say, get into bed and get it figured out. Don't come to me for that. And I dropped it. And now we're rolling back to it, having to do with me giving workshops having to do with the different chakras. And we went ahead and did the second chakra, which is 2 inches below your belly button. And we are in shock because nobody remembers about sex, certainly not the way we used to. And nobody remembers that that energy center is about creation, how your intentions happen. Most people do not know that the name of that energy center means sweetness. That's the definition of the word of that chakra in Hinduism means sweetness, joy. There's no joy on the planet. There's also no sex. Most people don't know that orgasm is spiritual ecstasy. And when we show them the famous statue, St. Teresa, and her autobiography, it's very obvious that she is in spiritual ecstasy, but it is an orgasm. And people don't know that. So, fine, we're working on that energy center. I have testimonials to where I am putting them up on Facebook and on TikTok, and I'm just waiting for them to be taken down. Women, one particular woman, but there's many, saying she had sex once a month with her husband. Now she's having sex 4 times a week. We're not working on sex. We're working on clearing that energy center. But there's also a lot more of that energy that you get when you're sexually active, which is like this savvy, sweet, fun energy. And again, all we're doing, I'm the one when you go to the workshops, I start cutting and clearing and cutting and clearing and cutting and clearing. And then 2 weeks ago, I realized, darn, the second chakra is where Kundalini is, which is kind of like important. And I realized that the people that do Kundalini yoga, you can go many times and do Kundalini yoga, and you're not going to have an orgasm. And you're not going to have the experiences that the people that are in my workshops are having, because what they're trying to do is stimulate an energy for it to rise, which has to do with the ascension process, has to do with being really open, your center axis being just a channel of light, that this energy can travel up. Jesus Christ was born a channel of light. And I realized, darn, we're working on the place where Kundalini is. Kundalini symbolically is a snake that's intertwined 3.5 times. And then that snake needs to travel up your center axis, which is your Holy Grail, and reach the top. And when you see the Egyptian pharaohs where they have the snake with the head out like this, that's their Kundalini that they did get to rise. And I went, wow, that's really important. So we're working in terms of advertising. I say that we're working on releasing it. So when I gave, I think the first or the second workshop, I could see the head of the serpent, and it had it was in a metal cage. And I said, you know what? It really doesn't matter how many Kundalini yoga classes you take. It doesn't matter how evolved you are. That is not going to happen because it is cursed. There is a metal cage on top of it. When the galactics do black magic, they use a lot of metallic wiring and cages. And the head of the Kundalini, and everybody in the planet has, well, maybe some people have cleared it, and maybe they don't, but basically almost everybody, it's not going to rise. And Kundalini rising has to do with the ascension process. It has to do with the connection with God. It has to do with superpowers. So we have neglected our sexuality to the detriment of our spirituality. That's a good quote. But then we get to the fun part. Let's not get to the fun part yet. Then we get population collapse. Well, you can't have population collapse if enough people are having sex. Okay? So they're not. But people aren't dealing with they're not having enough sex. When I was screaming about it, I actually was like in shock about it 10 years ago. Now that the populations have collapsed, now we have this very funny situation to where I am going to compose a proposal to work with the Ministry of Sex in Russia. Now, I suspect I'm never going to get it to them. I suspect I'm going to get to somebody here in this country, which makes more sense. But let me show you what's in the news, but you're not going to find it on CNN. Oh, darn. And where did I see it? On X, of course. Of course, on X. So here it is. Read it. I'll read it out loud to you, but here it is. This is the way the article read. Turn off the internet, turn up the heat, Russia, it's cold. That's an order. With birth rates plunging in Russia, 72-year-old Putin is pushing for his people to have some serious pillow talk, literally. Russia's new baby boom strategy includes a ministry of sex dedicated to inspiring Russians to get cozy, complete with internet blackouts after 10 o'clock at night to encourage connection. The Kremlin is pulling out all stops with government sponsored date nights, wedding night hotel vouchers, and even talk of a salary for stay at home lovers. They're calling it a special demographic operation. Now, did you ever think that we would get here to this place? No, no, you didn't. Neither did I 10 years ago. But we have got to do something. Here's the sad part. How do you cook meat in your home? Your stove with heat or your microwave. You cook the meat. And I'm not used to this kind of language, so I probably will not say it as elegantly as I should. But a man's penis is meat. So what's that got to do with it? Would you put your penis inside a microwave oven? No. Would you put it in a regular oven? No. You're not doing that, but you are microwaving your penis with your cell phone because it radiates microwave frequency. Oh, so now we could be dumb as a rock and set up ministries of sex to figure out how to stimulate sexual desire. At the same time, we're microwaving the organs that are the ones that are the seat of power having to do with sexual desire. In other words, we're going to have to deal with the issue of frequencies at a very baseline level. Mothers who are pregnant are texting right in front of their nice stomachs that are supposedly protecting their infants. They're not. They're microwaving them. And this energy center in the neck, the throat chakra, connects to the second one, which has to do with sex and joy, etc. So if you have the cell phone near your head, you're microwaving an energy center that whatever happens to it is going to happen to your sexual, which is really the sacral chakra that I have always insisted on doing, calling it sacral/sexual. Nobody else does that. So we're going to have to deal with the thing that is making many of our kids, and I'm going to say it again, dumb as a rock, augments autism, changes people into something that they're not, which is our electronic devices. So are we going to allow this country to continue to be dumb as a rock and to deal with the population collapse issue in a way that has nothing to do with what caused the problem to start out with? So why haven't we dealt with it? When I wrote the book, Your Matrix, Your Electric Body, wondering if my head was going to get cut off 10 or 15 years ago, because you do not talk about the electric body in this country without getting your head cut off, people following you in the street, people making sure that everybody thinks you're dumb, making you be fired from your jobs. Thank God I don't have a job. When I put that out, it was a bestseller in Romania. They sold 20 copies. I'm just joking. It sold kind of okay in Romania, but nothing could happen. It did not sell here, and I had it in English and Spanish. Nobody wanted to hear it because they would have to look at their cell phone addiction and their addiction to technology. So basically, we are where I was having a lot of fun with this Ministry of Sex yet last night. I'm not having fun with it right now because it's so important and we have to get it right. Atlantis went down and was wiped off the face of the earth because their technology was very high and their ethics having to do with technology was very low. They ran, they were competitive, and they wanted to get the stuff out first, and they did, and they didn't care about the people. We're doing exactly the same thing today in many different ways, having to do with our children, having to do with autism, having to do with schooling, IQs, health. Children's health is 15%. This is 15 years ago, the statistics were that the kids were the first generation that were less healthy than their parents. Their hearts were 15% less healthy. Has to do with the frequencies. So that's the bad news. And I'm going to scream bloody murder because I don't think anybody, because Trump is in, I don't think I'm going to get taken down for saying stuff that's true and that a lot of people know, that has made us cry bitter tears. Nobody would even want to speak to me for years because of that. Actually, I have somebody in my family who accused me of not liking a particular person. And I said, wait a second, I didn't have a problem with that person. Then I realized, yeah, I do have a problem with that person. They didn't do their homework having to do with radiation, and they're addicted to electronic devices. So yeah, I did have a problem, but that was the problem. It wasn't that I didn't like them. So this is the good news. Because of my lack of training in regular science, and because this just wasn't my department, I didn't really know about frequencies. I knew that the microwave was a frequency that powers everything wireless. But I didn't really know anything about frequencies. But it turns out that there are frequencies. By the way, microwave, according to the dolphins, that frequency, which the military were the ones that grabbed it and brought it down to the dimensions where humans have bodies, because we don't just have one body, we have energy bodies. And they found out that it melted chocolate because the story is that somebody had a chocolate bar in their pant pocket, and when they were experimenting with microwave, the chocolate melted. And they, oh my God, they did microwave ovens. Russia prohibited microwave ovens. I'm going to throw a rock at somebody that criticizes Russia. They protect their people a lot more than we have been protected in this part of the world. Okay, get over it. Your self-esteem, get over it. Get on board to getting this taken care of. So I have discovered lately, I'm sorry I didn't know it before, that there are frequencies. The frequency of trilling, which is the frequency of your mind strings from string theory, corrects and heals the frequency of microwave. Does that mean that you can continue to be as addicted? No. Does that mean that there can be a lot of self-correcting going on if you have our mantrista movement music on 24/7? Yeah, you can correct a lot of it. Maybe we don't have to give up all of our electronic devices. But I do believe we're going to have to modify the amount of time that we are in environments that have many different electronic devices radiating that frequency. And we need to do something that we all know anyway that we need to do, which is more contact with nature. So microwave radiates fire. Trilling can put out that fire. And I'll do the music in a few minutes when we do the mantra. And the image is water that puts out fire, and then the sound are musical notes plus the trilling, which is the sound of birds chirping. Maybe that's why birds can be on electrical wires and they don't get electrocuted, which I think nobody's figured out yet. Maybe that's the reason. I have no idea. So there are remedies, but we need to get them out very quickly. And we need to remember that our organs in our second energy center, all the organs having to do with sex, all the organs that need to be healthy for that area to be healthy, and that area generates our ability of creation. Our biggest creation is having a child. Maybe we're going to be able to get this taken care of without all of us having to live in tents and in caves and without mass communication. But we need to get people, more people than just my group of mantristas, to understand this and to work on it. And I still think that if we do that, you really shouldn't have your cell phone anywhere near this energy center, the throat, or your second chakra, which is 2 inches below your belly button. Also, everything that happens to your second energy center affects your throat chakra. Your throat chakra is the one that has the portal to galactic. That portal to the galactic has spirits come in that are called incubus and succubus, and probably other types now that are worse, but these are the ones I'm familiar with. They come in through there and they go down to your second energy center. Those are the ones that have to do with addiction to pornography, perverted sex, those sex crimes to where they totally mutilate the people when it's really not necessary to mutilate them. Just kill them. Have sex with them, kill them, but you don't need to do all of that, but they do because of those spirits. Those are the spirits that turn people into zombies, which is a big issue that the Trump administration is going to have to deal with, because that's right there right now, according to what was foretold for this time. And that's facilitated because this portal cannot be opened prematurely. I'm going on and on and on and on. What is the bottom line? Orgasm is spiritual ecstasy. We are at a time when we're supposed to be reunited with God. We're supposed to have that spiritual ecstasy. It doesn't have to be necessarily through orgasm. It can be with a partner. The Buddhists know how to do it without a partner. St. Teresa had it without a partner, even though there was an angel standing next to her with a lance. So that's a joke. She did it without a partner. We need to understand sex. Does anybody know the definition of sex? If they didn't hear it from me, sex means, in the dictionary, to cut and to divide. And that's what happened to the planet. When God looked at man and said, oh, he's lonely, let me create something to keep him busy. And he created woman, and that created sex, divide. We're supposed to erase that division to be able to go back to God. We're talking about an awful lot of really big issues that have come together now in end times, be above and beyond population collapse. But let's go ahead and have fun again. Ministry of Sex. And we can laugh at Russia, but they're making sense by understanding that they need to address it. They want to turn off the internet at night because they know that people are addicted. You see all these photographs of people in bed. The guys turn that way with his cell phone. The girls turn that way with her cell phone. That's one of the issues, the entertainment value of our cell phones and the internet. How you get instant gratification when you find something on Google. See how happy? Check out the next time somebody goes, oh, look it up, and they look it up and here, and look at their faces, the joy that they have in their faces. They just achieved something. They're not frustrated in that second. How did we get here? We weren't paying attention. And the people that could have given us the information were not allowed to speak. They were, if they spoke with fear, and they were shadow banned, the social media. The book, The Body Electric by Robert Beck. When I was at the university in the 60s, it was like a big deal. They did so many things that poor guy, by the time he wrote the second book, he was totally destroyed. They were not going to allow that. And I think in that book, he said, salamanders, you can cut an arm off, and because they have an electrical system, they'll regrow the arm. What are we talking about here? We're talking about controlling knowledge in order to control people. And then we end up with population collapse, and we have entire countries that are not going to be able to come to a negotiation table with any power at all, because within 15 years, they're not going to be able to sustain themselves. So why are you signing a 25-year agreement or even a 10-year agreement? And that, of course, is what has the politicians concerned. Who's going to work to pay taxes to keep the old people going so Social Security doesn't collapse? So rather than going, oh my God, why don't we go ahead and rejoice in the fact that we have a new government that is not going to control information so that discoveries can actually get to the people and get funded so that they can be taken to the top really quickly, so that we can address the issue of population collapse where it started, which is a lack of interest in sex. So how did that happen? I just explained how it happened. Now, if you have a hard time holding this all together, it's because of spirits that do not want you to be able to hold that information. Let me see if I have anything else in my notes. This was so much more fun when I was talking about it last night, when I was talking about offering my services to Russia. I'm not sure that there's anybody else that can be more effective at understanding the root of what it is that's going on than me. And that's the truth. And I'm not being an egomaniac. This whole thing about being humble is emotional dishonesty. If you're saying something that's true or that you believe to be true, even if it makes you look good, why shouldn't you be allowed to say it? But we haven't been. We have to present as flat. It was the government that made me this bright, and then they wouldn't let me talk. We're constructed to create, and then we're instructed to obey. Music therapy can deal with the issue, and moderation in terms of the amount of Wi-Fi that's around you. And we have the music. I'm going to use one of the compositions that we had Mateo Cuaron compose for us for the Mantrista movement. The second energy center is the part of us that from where joy is generated. And if you look at somebody who starts a new sexual relationships before the mother-in-law issues and the jealousy issues and the control issues start up, and you look at them and you go, they just had sex. They have this energy on around them. They're emanating this energy, and there's this sweetness and this savviness that we look at it and we go, wow, they just had sex. We can have that. Now, and here we go back to, and I keep thinking, please God, don't let them do this to me. We have taken Jesus Christ, who was a shaman, and shamans have sex. And we have people and religions and groups that have used him for marketing purposes. And it wasn't to their advantage that Jesus Christ have sex. Therefore, this big guy that was the poster boy for the age of Pisces didn't have sex. Well, I think maybe that's a little bit of the part of population collapse. You have this guy that everybody adores and admires. They don't really know who he was because that doesn't work. And he didn't have sex. So how? And then I have most of my followers who are Hispanic have the crucifix above their beds. But I've told them this many times. I said, what are you doing? The guy's on a cross. And he didn't have sex. Really? Do you really think he should be above your bed? It's for protection. Can we please keep our intelligence operational when we talk about Jesus Christ? That symbolism, he's protecting you, and he's died on a cross. I'm not saying he didn't die on a cross. I like him better than you do, but I know who he is, and you don't. A book that's written 300 years later represents him? I don't think so. But we got to get this right. Because if we, the person most admired in the West, never had sex, we're not going to be able to take care of very effectively the population collapse issue because it has to do with sex. And then Kundalini, they can be really interesting. So no more Kundalini yoga classes until you get your Kundalini serpent, purified from the black magic that the galactics did, that little cage. Now, I am giving workshops. I haven't done it in English. I cannot imagine all the questions that Anglos are going to ask me. But I am also going to do a video with graphics showing people what it is that I do, because I know a lot of people today are going to become very operational in the other dimensions, because it's not possible that only one person on the planet take care of this, obviously. So I will be sharing maybe next week, now that this whole thing with the elections is over and I can get my act together, that the bad guys maybe can back off, etc. So let's go ahead and do a mantra. And let me put the music on, which has to do with, that was composed for us, having to do with the second energy center, which is where Kundalini is, which has to do with your sexuality, your sacredness, your ability to create. Your biggest creation is child, creativity. And I know there's one more thing. And if you get that cleared, you cannot have prostrate issues. You cannot have impotence issues. You cannot be frigid. Once you clear that center, you won't have those issues. You can't have cancer of the ovaries. I always said, and I'm only connecting the dots now, in the 90s, when I started to do my process of therapy, from starting to remember the details of the tortures, and I always said that I had a passport out, which meant when I decide I want to leave, because we all choose when we're going to leave. We choose when we're going to die and how we're going to die. We choose everything. We create everything. And I said, it's my right ovary. And it's just right now that I realize ovaries in the second chakra. My biggest issue was the sexual abuse. I get it now. That was where I was going to allow that to kick in, the cancer, which would have been rage plus impotence. And that was going to be my passport out. Interesting. So you cannot have cancer in any of those organs, male or female. Impotence, prostrate. So getting that energy center cleared is like a really big deal. But if you put up Mr. Putin, who, by the way, I like this guy. Did not allow microwaves in Russia. And many other things, we said, no, it doesn't allow GMOs. Whoa. You mean we can actually do that? Not here. So anyway, let's go ahead and do the mantra that I think where we need to start, which is, even though I'm afraid of sex. How did I do it? Was I afraid of sex or afraid of my sexuality? No. Let's do, even though I'm afraid of sex, I love and accept myself. It's a purification mantra. You're going to do the mudra, which is this little finger with the thumb, and just put it in your lap. You're going to breathe 2 inches below your belly button. And if you have the ability, you can just breathe in orange light, which is the color of that chakra. And I'm going to put the music, which includes horses. Horses are used for issues of sexual abuse. They're used for pedophiles, for the therapy for pedophiles. It corrects the energies in that energy center. So all of these things are important for the ministry of sex, which I'm assuming that we'll have a different type of name for it in this country. But unless we get to the root cause, we're wasting time and money. And apparently we really don't have any time. We need to get this taken care of now. Okay, so here we go. Today is a portal. It's 11:11. And that portal has to do with, I forgot, I looked up the symbolism, but basically it has to do with a coming together of male, female, or partners or whatever. I can't get this trans, gay, homosexual thing in terms of language. I'm not quite sure what's supposed to be happening there, but I'm certainly not trying to insult anybody. I have nothing against people that are gays. So we are going, oh, I have to write the mantra. Give me a second. I want to say something. In Tantric I was trained in Tantric Buddhism. I will never be teaching that. You don't, that's like not the kind of thing, that's really not where I'm at. That's not what I'm going to teach. But in Tantric Buddhism, it is known that you can clear an entire disease with one act of sex. Do you think maybe we need to know more about sex? I think so. Let's do 10 minutes. And this is the video that was composed for the Mantrista movement for the sacral sexual chakra. Let's do 10 minutes. You repeat the mantra in silence. Trying to get this to where I am small. There we go. Okay, we did 9.5 minutes. Do you feel better? I'm more relaxed. I forgot there was an earthquake in Cuba. I think it was yesterday. The earthquake was very near Guantanamo Bay. A couple of us saw that somebody had exploded dynamite, and that can trigger an earthquake. I'm not saying that it did, but the information that we got was there was a connection between the earthquake and the Atlantis issue of pyramids that are in that part of the waters right next to Cuba. That perhaps the earthquake was like a process of trying to block some revelations having to do with Atlantis. So I'm giving you news from other dimensions. And if I have to start monitoring myself having to do with your belief system, then basically I cannot do this in English. And I'm going to do it in English. Therefore, you have to get used to hearing things that might be uncomfortable for you because they're not included in your belief systems. But throughout history, including in the Bible, catastrophes are known to be like a purification process. In the Bible, it has to do with people behave badly, but it appears that there is some help having to do with having catastrophes with, so there's some question marks there. And it's interesting because there was like no news, and it was 6.8, and there were two 6.8, I think, and 6.6. Huge. Nothing in the news again. And the only place I saw it was in X, which is the only place you can get the news. Also, I had picked up, and through the years, I've picked up information like what I'm going to give you now. And I have asked my followers to remind me when the time comes, because the future is elastic and plastic, whether what I said actually happened. And I've been pretty accurate. Um, and I said about a month ago that we would get a matrix type implant, except it would be a matrix type, but it would be like a parasite, like a snake that was going to get implanted in our belly button on the 18th of November, which is next week. And one of the things that you need to do is from here forever, you need to have coconut oil in your belly button. Coconut has the energy of júbilo, which is the energy that you're supposed to get from your second chakra. That joy that we don't have on the planet, that's generated in the second chakra. The second chakra, our second chakra is sick. Population collapse is a symptom. Coconut oil can help to heal it. But apparently, it's also going to be very important having to do with this implant that's coming in. That implant is going to go into the belly button. Yeah, I know it's outside of your belief system. But if I wait for you, it'll all be over. Okay, so I'm not going to wait for you to be really comfortable with the information that I'm giving you. Okay, so that implant is supposed to go into the belly button and then go to the back of your body and travel up a system that has an implant that's there to go into your heart chakra. So basically, it's going to destroy sexuality, joy, etc., and also heart connection to keep human beings from being human beings. Um, in terms of my own personal news, I still do not have any US mail. Trump, can you please look into that? No US mail since the 22nd of August. And the head of the post office in Coral Gables put in a change of address, and the head of the post office in Coconut Grove did also. So did my mail carrier here in Coconut Grove. Not one single piece of forwarded mail. No mail. If I like city furniture, I get mail because I set up an account there after I moved. So it never went into forwarding. So if Trump, you can look into that, that would be, we already know where it's going to end up. Somebody wants me totally isolated, and apparently there's some stuff from the court system that could be directed to me, but that I'm not getting. So it's shocking, actually. Okay, so then we will be back again tomorrow, and hopefully I can get this heaviness that I'm feeling off of me and get back to the fun that I was having yesterday with the Russian Ministry of Sex. And if you're bothered by the word sex, the word orgasm, then you need to do a mantra, because we need to get this fixed, because now it reached a political issue. Now it's a political issue. Now it's a survival issue. Do you really think you're going to be able to do big business if the economy of this country goes down the way it is going to go down if we do not correct the population collapse? And the only way we can correct that is to have more babies. The only way you can have more babies is to have more sex. This in vitro thing and this IVF or whatever they call it, this is a little bit of a problem. Energetically, spiritually, but the energy bodies, it's a huge issue, which you're not familiar with, and I'm not going to go into because I don't want to shock people. But that's not the remedy, obviously, and it's very expensive. So we will be back, and maybe with a lot more fun tomorrow, okay? But I needed to get all of this information to you. And thank you for joining me. I'm Frances Fox, and this is News from Other Dimensions. And we do have the podcast. We convert this into a podcast that you can get on Spotify. And do follow us and share. Okay?